Pierre-Henri Gourgeon, thank you for joining us today on Bloomberg.
Pleasure.
You've just announced full-year results which show that you're back in the black for the first time in 3 years, but lost money in the fourth quarter, and you're sounding fairly cautious about the current year with the goal of an unquantified increase in operating profit. What are your main challenges in that regard?
First, one has to understand that the first quarter, January, February, March, is always the worst one. And for example, if you take the European carriers and most of the US carriers, you all see that it's always a loss. So it's not a surprise to be still in loss in the first quarter. Now, if you take into account the fact that this quarter was under very high perturbation, all the Mediterranean zone, Africa, Japan, of course, and all that at the same time occurs in a few weeks. So it had impact on our revenues locally, on the passenger activity. After that, we moved the aircraft to other direction. We try to compensate and adapt our capacity, but it takes some weeks. So this has impacted the quarter. It has impacted also as well as the full year result.
Okay, but besides the external challenges that we've seen with Middle East unrest, Japan, earthquake, and so on, as your Vice Chairman, Peter Hartmann, said, there was a sharp deterioration in short-haul revenues, unit revenues, that you addressed by cutting capacity. But how much longer do you expect to be giving away business to low-cost competitors?
The reduction of capacity and the short medium is also partly due to interruption of activities caused by air traffic control strike, snow, any weather condition,
but you are losing some market
and
share.
also the volcano. So the total capacity we present for the short medium haul is including all those aspects. Right. Without those aspects, the capacity would be probably stable.
Okay, but you are losing market share to low-cost
Yeah.
competitors.
Yeah, of course.
And you have a plan to address that.
We have various plans. First, we have a part of the short medium haul activity which is in connection with the long haul. And then the logic of this activity is not the market share in itself, is to be sure that we correctly feed the long haul network such that our hub functioning is optimum. Second, we are losing market share. How do we address that? We try to address that by reshuffling our short medium haul model. It has been done and started in Air France and extended now to KLM with a program which was called NEO, where we modify the product, we modify the fares, we modify the commercial approach, we modify the relation with the corporate and so on. So all that is very encouraging, and then now is extended also to KLM and will give its full effect this year and the year after. Last way to also contribute to compensate for erosion of market share in this area is probably our province-based project, so-called, which is a project where in 3 or 4 big cities in the south of France, we intend to base a number of aircraft and operate from those bases with a very productive way and try to create a dozen of new routes.
You've been waiting for unions to agree to that voluntarily, haven't you? But and now the entry date is October for the first base, which is some time after the initial plan. Do you think you may have taken too long over this? Are you doing too little too late?
No, I don't think. We are talking about introducing that at summer. Of course, because of discussion with the unions, it has been a bit more demanding in time. We'll introduce it at the end of summer, right at the beginning of October. We don't have closed the discussion with the unions, but we see the way it goes. We are quite optimistic. We think that we'll succeed, and so we are comfortable with the plan for the time being. Yeah.
Did you have a choice though? I mean, we're seeing people like EasyJet increasing their frequencies on these routes. We're seeing Vueling talking about a new base in France, at least one, announcing new summer routes. Did you have a choice? Could you have imposed this, or did you really have to wait for everyone to agree to it?
Oh, we do not see this project possible if people are disagreeing with it. We need the agreement of the ground people. We need the agreement of the flying people. We need the agreement of the community around and the support of the community. So it's really a kind of project which is feasible if everybody is joining to create this project. It's really the way we go. As you know, for the cruise, we say that it's on a voluntary basis, which is the best way to be sure that we don't force anybody and we will have only people willing to do so.
So that's the situation in short and medium haul. In longer haul, the other side of the squeeze, if you like, you talked about Gulf carriers who are increasingly competitive and aggressive in the market. There too you have a response in the form of new joint ventures, but it's also quite a slow one, isn't it? When do you expect to be able to begin operations with a first Asian joint venture?
The question of speed is not relevant because if you have any other mean, you tell me. Because I don't intend to create a hub in Dubai. And we don't have the room for that. We are trying to negotiate an access to our lounge, which is not possible. We have been asking for 2 or 3 years to the subsidiary of Emirates if we could be treated a bit better in Dubai. But Dubai is a spoke. It's a final destination. We are not connecting over there. Now, the question is that Emirates, those Gulf carriers, taking advantage of the enormous financial potential of their shareholders, which is such that nobody is questioning the case of one company ordering 90 A380, but I hardly see any other airline through the world who could be authorized, who could be ordering so many aircraft without a full government support. I think Airbus will not sell so many aircraft to one individual private company. It's impossible. So they have this financial advantage to be backed by...
Your response? You've talked about joint ventures with countries.
Our response is to build up network resisting to their network. What they offer is very aggressive price, good service, and the inconvenience of connection. If we succeed in having a significant number of direct flights in decent conditions, then this is the first advantage. The second one is to be sure that we are strong on our market and that we have partners which are strong on the other side of the route on their market. And the carriers, Gulf carriers, are so aggressive in development that they cannot be in an alliance. It's like if you want to be married with somebody who is running very fast and miles ahead of you. So it's not a marriage. They are growing too fast. In an alliance, you have something to share.
Is it fair to assume that your next joint venture partner would be a Chinese one?
Yeah, certainly. We have started small joint venture with China Southern, discussing also with China Eastern. It will take time. We'll have to discuss a lot, but it's our real intent.
When do you expect to have a fully operational joint venture?
Well, I think in 1 or 2 years, yes, already, and developing that.
Right. Tell us about your fleet plans, because particularly in medium-range planes, it would be fair to say, wouldn't it, that your A320 fleet is getting quite long in the tooth, it's getting quite old. What's the sort of average age and what are your replacement plans?
We have started the replacement. I think globally we have introduced 30, or we are introducing 30 new A320 aircraft. Not neo, not the future one, the existing one today. And so we have a significant number of them, so we have already started the renewal.
What about the next step? I mean, what proportion of your fleet are you going to renew in the next step?
Well, we'll see. It's a bit depending. I mean, the difficulty is you define an ideal time where it would be sensible to get rid of an aircraft and replace it by another one. Well, this decision is depending upon what you get. If the replacement is showing a very strong economic advantage, then you would say, okay, I go immediately. I don't wait until the last end of the life of an aircraft. If, for example, somebody tells you in 3 years from now, you will have a very good aircraft, but which will be a lot better than the one you would get today if you want to replace your aircraft, then you work on extending the life of your aircraft.
Right, so if the Neo meets your best expectations,
Yeah.
then what sort of proportion of your A320 fleet would you be looking to replace in the future?
Probably, if the Neo is efficient, we will replace some of our aircraft by Neo. Maybe mainly those who are operating on long range, because I understand that because it is an advantage of fuel consumption, it's probably more visible on a longer range stage. And as you know, our usual stage length is quite short in Air France-KLM. In Air France, because KLM does not have a 320. So we have very short range, and on short range, the effect of a change in the fuel consumption is not as attractive.
So what sort of proportion are we talking about?
I don't know. It will depend on the performance of Neo, and I don't have a clear view inside my organization at what it will bring to us, taking into account the special feature of our network.
Okay, what about the 787 and the A350? Are you approaching a decision?
We're working on that. We've been working for a long time, and we were always postponing the decision because there was some delay in the delivery, in the slots available, in the performance, visibility, and so on. So we are working actively on that. We may be approaching a decision, I'm not sure.
You may be approaching a decision this year.
Yeah, maybe.
And is it conceivable that you take both planes, or is it better to have one or the other?
I think all the schemes are feasible.
Okay. The Flight 447 crash investigation is making some progress now. The black box has been recovered. And the BEA has said that no significant faults have been found with the plane, which inevitably sharpens the focus on Air France's procedures and pilot training.
No, I don't think so.
Why not?
Because it did not say that. It's your interpretation. They say that what they have seen up to now, maybe changing in the future, does not create the ground for action to be taken in the area of the aircraft. It does not say faults. It mentions defaults or significant defaults at this stage today. So I think it is not responsible to try to deduce from what is said here and there. For technical reason, it is needed to say to the operator, wait for the time being, nothing new, I'll tell you. And that's, of course, when the BA on Airbus is talking to other operators, they don't have to talk about anything else than the aircraft they are operating. But they are not saying that their job is to identify responsibilities or faults. The job of this body, which is the same for NTSB, the same for CAA, is to identify where some action could be needed in more of all what has been done since 2 years to be sure that we have addressed globally, the aeronautical community has addressed the accident completely in such a way that the probability of a new occurrence is totally remote, totally impossible.
There are some things we do know about this accident. I mean, there's been an interim report. We know, for example, that the pitot tubes had a problem and they've been replaced already.
That has been addressed, for example.
And, for example, we know that it took several hours for the plane's disappearance to be realised. Do you think there should be some sort of international action on perhaps the transmission of flight data in real time?
Yeah, I think so.
And also on communications between the pilots and the ground by satellite?
Yeah.
We're in a radio black hole to some extent.
I perfectly agree, and I can tell you that Air France has been working a lot on that, and we have already solutions which are being tested.
In which domain?
For example, communication through satellite to give more indication in case of emergency, such that we get not one information every 10 minutes, but a very speedy information rhythm, which will help any localization process, for example.
Is this just data, or is it pilot communications as well?
No, this is data. It's automated.
Do you have any? Do you think there's any need for improved pilot vocal communications?
We are improving. We are working on that also because we will introduce in Europe something which has been introduced already by KLM, and which is used in the US. It's a stronger communication link between the ground and dispatcher in the ground and the crew. That is at work and will be operational in 2 years. It was started before the accident.
Does that work?
It was started before the accident. I launched the project the 1st January of 2009, but we think it's a kind of answer.
By satellite, presumably?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. And finally, you mentioned today that the joint venture with Delta has agreed to cut winter capacity by 7 to 9%. That's quite a big cut, isn't it?
Compared to last year, where it was increasing by 20% compared to the year before. So it's a bit difficult to make comparison. What we say is we went too hard last year, especially on the US side, and not only Delta, but also US airline. Everybody was enthused after the summer, wow, let's go. So we have aircraft available, let's fly. And we went largely over the demand. The demand was more restricted. And so the gap between demand and capacity was such that we had a very significant deterioration of our revenue. Now, we want to correct that. We want to have a decent yield. When we are at the low season, the good thing is to have a low capacity according to the demand. And what we have decided is to come back to a more reasonable situation, which is 7 to 9%. But once again, last year, I think Delta was increasing by 20%. But after also, the year before, they were decreasing. So it's a kind of up and down. It's a bit complicated to mention. And winter is always lower than the summer. Winter season is not dimensioning. The dimensioning season is always the summer. And the winter is under. If you operate at winter at the same level as summer, it's an extraordinary overcapacity.
Was this the first significant capacity reduction that you negotiated with the joint venture?
Yes, but at winter time. Once again, it's not the same at summer.
You mentioned earlier that the discussions were quite tricky.
No, I say this is regular and business discussion, and business discussion is always a bit tense, of course, because you have the teams and you have a lot of people involved, the guy in charge of such areas, such continent, Asia, Europe, Africa, and so on. And everybody will protect or will try to support his own idea. And the joint venture governance, the principle is very good, is because of the economics of the joint venture, it is the interest of everybody to agree and to drive it as a unique airline.
But you had a different idea of what the capacity cut should be.
Oh yes, we have to adjust, always the same. One is saying you should cut the capacity, the other one saying no, you should cut the capacity. Finally, we do the same.
So it's the same, everyone's cutting both.
Yes, we take our share of decrease, of course.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.